Let me ask you something that most people never pause to consider. Who's really in charge of your life, you or your calendar? You see, life doesn't rob you of your dreams, disorganization does. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. No, they fail because their days belong to chaos. Their energy belongs to noise. Their schedule, it belongs to everyone but them. And here's what I've learned, my friend. A week left to chance is a life left to drift. The ancient philosophers used to say, know thyself. But I say, plan thy week. Because if you don't shape the next 7 days with intention, they'll shape you, and not always kindly. So today I want to talk to you not just about productivity, but about purpose. Not just about a calendar, but about your character. Because how you plan your week is how you build your future, one decision at a time. If you don't run the week will run you. Let me tell you something I learned early, the hard way. If you don't run the week will most certainly run you. And when it does, it won't ask permission. It won't knock politely. It will come crashing in with other people's requests, urgent distractions, random noise, and every little fire you never intended to fight. Life is persistent like that. It doesn't care whether you're prepared. It only cares whether there's space available. And if you don't fill that space with intention, it will gladly fill it with confusion. You see, your calendar's like a garden. If you don't plant flowers, weeds will grow. Not maybe, always. In my early years, I thought if I worked hard and stayed available, life would sort itself out. I'd respond to every request, say yes to every meeting, try to be everything to everybody, and at the end of the week, I'd feel like I was everywhere and got nowhere. One day I looked up and realized I wasn't steering the ship. I was just bailing water, hoping I didn't sink. Then I discovered the power of planning, not just making a list, but owning my time. I learned that Sunday night, with a quiet mind and a pen in hand, was more powerful than any Monday morning with a phone full of chaos. The philosopher Seneca once said, if a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. And that's exactly it. If you don't take the time to plan your week, the winds of life will carry you to places you never meant to go. When you sit down and decide, this is what matters, this is what I will protect, this is how I will spend the hours I've been given, something remarkable happens. You don't just take control of your schedule, you take control of your life. Because drifting is easy, direction takes effort. But effort applied in the right direction, that's what changes everything. So the choice is simply either you run the week or the week runs you. Time is more valuable than money. Invest it wisely. Time is more precious than gold, because gold you can earn again, but time, once it's gone forever. And yet, it amazes me how casually people give it away. They'll trade hours for distractions, give days to other people's agendas, and then wonder why their life isn't moving in the direction they hoped. See, you can recover from a bad investment of money, but there's no refund policy on a wasted week. When I first started my journey, I used to believe that hustle alone would lead to success. I thought if I stayed busy, I was progressing. But I soon learned that being busy isn't the same as being productive. There were days I was exhausted and still had nothing to show for it. That's when it hit me. I wasn't investing my time. I was spending it carelessly. Like a man at the casino, tossing chips on every table and hoping for a return. But time doesn't reward hope. It rewards intention. A weekly plan is not just a schedule, it's a statement. It says, my time matters, my life matters, my purpose matters. Each block in your calendar is an appointment with your future. And how you treat that appointment tells you everything about your priorities. I used to write down appointments with clients and meetings, but I started scheduling time for reading, thinking, even rest. And you know what? That's when the breakthroughs began. The great Epictetus once said, no man is free who is not master of himself. And being a master of your time is a cornerstone of self-mastery. You must decide where your hours go before someone else decides for you. Every Sunday night, when you lay out your week, you are not merely managing tasks. You are allocating the most valuable asset you'll ever own, your time. Because money comes and goes, but time only goes. So invest it wisely. Clarity comes from planning, not from thinking harder. You know, most people walk around with a head full of good intentions, but a life full of chaos. They think if they just try harder, think longer, or wait for the right mood to strike, everything will somehow click. But let me tell you, clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from planning better. You don't need another motivational speech, you need a map. A map that says, here's where I'm going, here's how I'll get there, and here's what matters most this week. I remember in my early years, I used to sit and think for hours trying to get clarity on what to do next. I'd turn the same questions over and over in my mind until they turned into confusion. But then I discovered the magic of a pen and paper. The moment I started writing down what I needed to do, when I'd do it, and why it mattered, something incredible happened. The fog lifted, my stress dropped. My mind stopped spinning and started moving. There's a kind of peace that comes when your plan is visible. You're not guessing anymore. You're not reacting to the day, you're directing it. And that direction, that's where confidence lives. People think confidence is about being bold or loud. No, it's about being sure. And you get sure by getting clear. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and you have the power to revoke that estimate at any moment." That's what a weekly plan does. It revokes the chaos. It says, I will not be overwhelmed. I will be prepared. So if your mind feels cloudy, don't try to outthink it, outplan it. Write it down, structure it, block your priorities, because clarity doesn't visit the unprepared. It comes to those who are willing to lead their week before the week leads them. You are the CEO of your 168-hour week. Every one of us, whether rich or poor, young or old, powerful or unknown, receives the same deposit each week, 168 hours. That's your budget. That's your territory. And the question is, how are you managing it? Because whether you realize it or not, you're the CEO of your own week. You are in charge of this enterprise called your life, and how you lead it determines whether you profit or you perish. I often say, don't start the week until it's finished on paper. That's not just a cute idea. That's the mindset of someone who takes responsibility. Think of it like this. A CEO doesn't walk into the office on Monday morning wondering what's going to happen. No, they've reviewed the numbers, aligned the priorities, blocked the time, and given clear marching orders to the team. And that's what you've got to do with your time. Every hour has to answer to your vision. I learned this the hard way. Early in my journey, I had passion, ambition, and dreams, but no calendar. I was working hard, but I wasn't working smart. I was busy, but not building. It wasn't until I treated my week like a business, allocating time to my goals, tracking my efforts, protecting my focus, that my life began to compound in the right direction. Now, I always ask people, if I looked at your calendar, could I see your values? Could I see your goals? Or would I just see a lot of blank space and reactive living? Because let me tell you, your future is not in your imagination. It's in your schedule. What you plan is what gets built. Seneca once said, life, if well lived, is long enough. But a life without a plan is just noise and motion. You've got to lead your time like it matters, because it does. And if you don't run your week like a CEO, don't be surprised when it doesn't pay a dividend. If it's not scheduled, it's not real. You know, people often say, my family is everything, or my health is a top priority, or I really care about building my dream. But let me give it to you straight. Your true values are not what you say, they're what you schedule. Because if it's not on the calendar, it's not real. If it doesn't have a time slot, it doesn't have a future. It took me years to figure this out. I used to believe that intentions were enough, that wanting something badly would eventually make it happen. But wanting doesn't build anything, scheduling does. It wasn't until I started putting my most important values into my weekly plan that I finally saw real movement in my life. That's when my relationships deepened, my health improved, and my goals started turning into actual progress. I'll never forget the turning point. One week, I blocked off time for dinner with my family every evening. No calls, no appointments, just presence. I also set a recurring morning slot for exercise, no exceptions. Within days, my energy changed. Within weeks, my relationships changed. Why? Because I stopped living reactively and started living deliberately. You see, when you assign time to something, you make it visible. And when it's visible, it becomes fight-worthy. You start defending it. You stop letting distractions steal from it. That's what planning does. It elevates your priorities above the noise. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In the same way, waste no more time claiming what matters. Schedule it, show up for it, protect it, because your schedule doesn't lie. It tells the truth about who you are becoming. And if your values aren't in your calendar, they're not in your life. Weekly planning builds discipline, the foundation of success. Discipline doesn't begin when the alarm rings or when the gym opens or when the task is due. No discipline begins the moment you decide, the moment you sit down and say, "This week, I lead my life on purpose." That's why Sunday night is sacred. It's not just another evening, it's a defining moment where you cast a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. Because the foundation of discipline isn't in action, it's in intention. And planning is how intention gets translated into action. You see, every time you take out your planner, block your priorities, and assign time to what matters, you're not just scheduling tasks, you're keeping a promise to yourself. And the more promises you keep, the more you trust yourself. That's how internal credibility is built, not with loud declarations, but with quiet follow-through. Let me share something from my early years. I wasn't always structured. I was full of ambition, yes, but I was scattered. I'd make plans in my head, but never on paper. I'd tell myself I'd get to it, but I never did. And do you know what that did? It eroded my self-trust. Every broken commitment chipped away at my confidence. But something changed when I started planning every week. Not just what I needed to do, but who I wanted to become. I blocked the time and then I showed up. Maybe not perfectly, but consistently. And with each week, the muscle of discipline got stronger. And that muscle, my friend, is what turns goals into growth. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that mastery, it starts on Sunday night, when you decide to lead your life with structure, not spontaneity. So don't just plan your tasks, plan your character, plan your follow-through. Because every week you plan with discipline, you're not just managing time, you're shaping who you are. A well-planned week protects your energy and prevents burnout. Burnout isn't the result of ambition, it's the result of mismanagement. It's not the weight of the work that wears you out. It's carrying it without structure, without rhythm, without margin. I've seen more people crash not because they were too committed, but because they were too chaotic. That's why I say, a well-planned week is not a luxury, it's a lifeline. You see, planning isn't just about being more productive. It's about being more protected. Protected from overcommitment, from scattered focus, from constant noise. When you take time on Sunday night to map your week, not just what you need to do, but when you'll rest, when you'll think, when you'll breathe, you're creating balance by design, not by accident. I learned this the hard way. There was a season in my life when I said yes to everything. Speaking engagements, meetings, projects, all of it. My calendar was full, but my soul was empty. I was present everywhere, but peaceful nowhere. Then one Sunday night, I sat down and asked myself, what is this pace costing me? The answer was painful. Clarity, energy, joy. From that week forward, I started blocking not just tasks, but renewal. Walks, reading, dinners, margin. That saved me. Seneca said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." And I'll add, if you don't schedule the port of rest, you'll drift into the rocks of burnout. So when you plan your week, don't just ask what you'll do. Ask how you'll recover. Ask when you'll breathe. Because a rested you is a creative you, a present you, a powerful you. And the most strategic thing you can do for your goals might not be another hour of work, it might be an hour of quiet. So don't wait for burnout to teach you what balance could have. Build it now, one well-planned week at a time. The week is your laboratory test. Tweak and transform. Now, here's something I wish more people understood. The week is not just a list of appointments or obligations. It's a laboratory. It's your personal test ground. It's where you experiment, observe, adjust, and evolve. You don't have to get everything right, you just have to be willing to study what worked and what didn't and then tweak it. That's how growth happens. Not from perfection, but from reflection. You see, success doesn't belong to those who try to force a flawless plan into a messy life. No, it belongs to those who treat their week like a draft, not a decree. You try your new morning routine. How did it feel by Friday? You block time for deep work. Did it actually happen, or did you get pulled into distractions? That's not failure, that's data. And the wise don't fear data, they use it. In my early years, I'd sometimes plan out these beautiful weeks, color-coded, tightly scheduled, full of high hopes. But by midweek, I'd fall behind, miss a few things, get discouraged. Then one day it hit me, the goal wasn't to control the week, the goal was to learn from it. So I started asking better questions. What drained me? What moved me forward? What should I repeat? What should I release? That's when things began to change, not just in my results, but in my mindset. I no longer judged the week. I studied it. And that shift made all the difference. As Marcus Aurelius once said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your missed goals, your imperfect execution, they aren't roadblocks, they're road signs. They're telling you where to look, where to adjust, where to grow. So don't chase a perfect week. Pursue a learning week. Plan it, run it, review it, and next time, plan it just a little better. Because every tweak, every insight, every adjustment, that's transformation in motion. And it starts right there inside your week. Momentum is built 1 week at a time. Let me share something that changed the way I approached everything. Success is not an event. It's a rhythm. It's not one giant leap that changes your life. It's the steady beat of consistent wins, 1 week at a time. Most people wait for breakthroughs, but the achievers, they build them. Brick by brick, week by week. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. You just have to win this week. That's where momentum lives. Not in the future, not in the fantasy, but in the 7 days right in front of you. You set 3 priorities. You show up. You follow through. And when you finish that week strong, something happens. You start believing in yourself again. Years ago, I worked with a man who was overwhelmed by how far he felt from his goals. It's going to take years, he told me. And I said, yes, but this week, just this week, what can we move forward? We picked 3 things. He planned his days. He finished the week with a smile I hadn't seen in months. Why? Because progress beats perfection. Momentum beats motivation. It reminds me of what Aristotle said. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. 1 excellent week becomes 2. 2 become a month. And suddenly, you're not waiting for life to change. You're changing it. So I say, forget trying to conquer the year. Win the week. Just this week. Stack 1 solid week on another, and you'll create a rhythm that makes results feel inevitable. That's the power of weekly planning. It makes success not just possible, but predictable. Because in the end, it's not the big moment that makes you. It's the small ones, stacked, steady, and intentional. That's how momentum is built, and that's how greatness begins. Sunday night is the most important meeting of the week. One of the most powerful habits I ever built, and it didn't require waking up at 5 a.m. or making $1 million. It was the Sunday night meeting. No boardroom, no audience, no applause. Just me, my planner, and the next 7 days. Because before the world starts shouting its demands, I needed to hear from the quietest and most important voice in my life. My own. You see, Sunday night isn't the end of the weekend. It's the launch pad of the week. It's where vision meets reality. And all it takes is 30 minutes. 30 minutes to pause, reflect, review what worked, what didn't, and what matters next. That's not just planning. That's leadership. That's ownership. That's the moment you stop drifting into the week and start directing it. I've seen people walk into Monday like it's an ambush, reactive, foggy, unsure what matters or where to begin. And I've seen others walk into the same Monday with calm, with clarity, with control. The difference? One group waited to be told what the week would be. The other already told the week what it would become. It reminds me of the old proverb, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." But I say that step should be intentional. And what better way to take it than by meeting with yourself? Calendar open, priorities clear, before the noise begins. Make it a ritual. Pour the coffee, turn off the phone, light a candle if you have to. Create a space that says, "This moment matters." Because in that quiet half hour, you don't just fill in boxes, you reclaim your power. You decide in advance what gets your time, your energy, and your heart. And if you do that consistently week after week, you won't just plan the week, you'll shape your life. So I say don't miss that meeting. That's the one that changes everything. So now the question isn't if you should plan your week, the question is, will you? Because let me tell you, life doesn't slow down to ask what you intended. It moves forward based on what you committed to. And the truth is, if you don't lead your week, the week will lead you. Not with clarity, but with chaos. Not with progress, but with pressure. But when you sit down, even just for 30 minutes on a Sunday night, and say, here's what matters, here's where I'm going, something shifts. You stop reacting. You start directing. You stop running in circles. You start building a life. Because that's what planning does. It turns hope into habit, vision into victory. So here's the call. This Sunday night, meet with yourself. No excuses, no delays. Grab a pen, grab a planner, and take ownership of the next 7 days. Schedule what matters. Block your priorities. Make room for rest. And then go out and live that week on purpose. Because if you can win the week, you can win the month. Win the month, and you'll win the year. And win enough weeks in a row, my friend, you'll win the life you were meant to live.